You may have once been chosen by a woman, not through words but through a pause, a gaze that lingered a beat longer, a sentence that seemed casual but wasn't accidental at all. The problem is, you didn't realize it. And when she withdrew all those gentle signals, you began to wonder, did I just pass by something incredibly beautiful? There are women who will never directly say they like you. They don't name the feeling, and they don't leave behind a confession. But if you're perceptive, you'll feel it in that look, in a pause that seems unintentional, or in the way they stay just a little longer before leaving. They don't speak, but they're inviting you to step closer. A quiet invitation, not meant for your ears, but for those who can listen with emotion. Not everyone is still enough to notice that, because women often don't communicate with clear words, but with gentle signals, with an unfinished sentence, a fleeting touch, or sometimes a silence full of anticipation. They're not looking for an answer. They want to know whether you are truly present in that moment. Some men pass through a woman's heart without ever realizing they've been chosen, simply because they're too rushed, too logical, too used to things being spoken out loud. A woman's emotional language doesn't lie in what is obvious. It's like an arrow with no tip. If you only focus on the target, you won't see the direction. But if you're quiet enough, you'll sense the subtle movement weaving through the space between the two of you. Every vague sentence, every sudden silence, carries a layer of meaning only those with sensitivity can truly recognize. And sometimes, that sensitivity is what sets you apart. If you're still waiting for something clear, something specific, something certain, then you might have already missed the most beautiful emotions ever sent your way. Women don't wait for your analysis, nor hope for a correct answer. They only want to know whether you're there, in that moment, with a heart that isn't in a rush. In this video, you'll explore 5 things a woman only says to someone who's becoming special. Not to confess, but to open a door that leads to a place only those with depth are invited to step into. The first phrase, why does everything feel softer today? There are moments when a woman won't say she likes you. She won't use clear words, won't ask directly, and won't reveal anything specific. But then, in the middle of a conversation that seems casual and aimless, she suddenly looks around, gently pulls at her sleeve, then tilts her head and gazes into the distance through the glass window. Her smile is as delicate as early season mist, and she lets out a soft line. Things feel a little softer today. It might sound like a passing comment about the weather, but if you are a man who is still enough, deep enough, and truly present, you'll know she's not talking about the sky. She's talking about herself, about a quiet shift taking place inside her ever since you appeared. Softer means she no longer has to brace herself to be strong. It's when her eyes grow less guarded, when the invisible walls she once built around herself begin to loosen. It's not a confession, it's a signal, subtle, hard to detect, but so real that if you respond the wrong way, it will vanish as if it never existed. Every woman carries her own sky. There are days of blazing sun, stormy afternoons, and moments of silence chilled by cold winds. But when she feels safe, the weather within her begins to change, not because you did something grand, but simply because your presence is calm enough, steady enough, warm enough, and like sunlight after rain, you ease the climate within her, even if she can't explain why. If you hear that sentence and respond hastily with something like, "Yeah, it's been nice and cool this morning," then you've missed it, because what she needs is not confirmation about the weather. She needs a man who listens with his heart, not just his ears. A man still enough to realize that in that moment, she's not testing the world around her. She's testing your ability to be truly present. The Stoic man doesn't try to take over her emotions. He doesn't speak much. He simply stays, with a gaze that lingers 1 second longer, with a smile just warm enough for her to feel, yet not so forward that it makes her retreat. And sometimes that's all it takes, because when a woman lets her heart soften, when she quietly admits that gentleness is returning inside her, it means she has opened the first door, not for everyone, but for someone who is tender enough to enter with quiet kindness. And if today a woman looks at you and says, "Things feel a little softer," don't answer, don't try to explain. Just be the reason she feels that way, through your steady, gentle, and unhurried presence. Because sometimes what makes a woman begin to feel isn't that you tried to impress her, but that you were calm enough for her to feel safe. The second phrase, "There's something about you that makes me feel strangely at ease." There are times when she sits beside you for a long while, without saying a word. No questions, no stories, no topics to start. She's simply there, as if your presence alone is enough to fill the space between you. And then, in a moment so ordinary, when you think you've done nothing special at all, she tilts her head slightly, looks at you with slow, steady eyes, and says, "There's something about you that makes me feel strangely at ease." You turn to her, smile softly, but say nothing, because you understand that sentence isn't asking for a response. It's not a compliment. It's not a signal for you to take the lead or move closer. It's a feeling, vague but real, light yet deep. She can't explain it, but she can't keep it inside either. She's not asking what cologne you wear. She doesn't need to know the name of that scent. She's simply realizing something, that your presence is affecting her in a way she can't quite describe, but can deeply feel ease, as if there's a rhythm in you that she's lost for a long time. And now, sitting next to you, her body is finally allowed to breathe in sync with that rhythm again. Scent is memory without logic. It doesn't knock. It doesn't warn. It simply seeps in, through stillness, through air, through the invisible distance between two people. A woman may forget your eyes, may forget your words, but if one day she catches that familiar scent in a crowded street, and her heart sinks just slightly, then you should know it's you she remembers. You don't need expensive fragrance. What makes her remember isn't in the bottle, it's in the way you carry it. Without force, without showing off, just there, quietly and honestly. You're not trying to make her feel something, but you've left something deeply personal, something no other man can imitate without only making her realize more clearly that they're not you. Scent is the invisible bridge between the present and memory. And when she says being near you makes her feel at ease, it means you've remained on that bridge. It's a place few people are ever invited to walk, because most leave behind noise, not presence. But if you are still enough to not disturb the silence inside her, then your scent becomes part of a memory she can't separate from, like a nameless background melody that never fades. When she expresses that feeling, you don't need to say anything back. A grounded man doesn't use compliments to win something. He simply carries a presence that has a scent, deep, calm, unhurried, and lets the woman come closer on her own breath. You don't need to hold her hand to prove anything. Just let her feel that being beside you, she doesn't need to hold on to anything, and still feels safe. Maybe one day she'll sit beside someone else, someone who has your look, your tone of voice, even your scent. But somewhere during a textbook, perfect date, she'll realize she can't quite breathe in the same rhythm. She'll still smile, still respond, still act engaged, but deep down she'll know what made her feel that ease wasn't the bottle of cologne. It was the man who once wore it in a way no one else ever could. And if one day she gently leans on your shoulder, not out of tiredness, but out of longing for the feeling of breathing again, and softly whispers, "I don't know why, but when I'm near you, I feel like I can breathe. Then don't answer. Don't call it a sign. Don't try to hold on. Just stay in the same quiet way you've always been there. The third phrase, there's something about you that makes me want to lean on. Not every word spoken needs to be analyzed. There are things a woman blurts out, not because she expects a response, but simply because the feeling suddenly rises and she can't hold it in. Like when she turns to you, her gaze not exactly searching, not quite expecting, and then softly says, "There's something about you that makes me want to lean on." You don't smile, and you don't ask her what she means. You don't rush to do anything in return, because you understand that's not an invitation, and it's certainly not a suggestion for you to make a move. It's a feeling she just recognized and trusted you enough to say aloud. A feeling that if she happened to lean your way, she wouldn't fear falling in the wrong direction. When a woman says she wants to lean on you, it has nothing to do with how broad your shoulders are. It has everything to do with how you make her feel, that if she were tired, just coming closer to you, without having to explain, without putting on a brave face, would be enough to feel lighter. She doesn't need someone who's strong in the usual sense. She needs someone steady enough so that even if she loses her balance, she won't fall out of herself. You don't need to be tall or stand out. Sometimes it's simply the way you sit quietly and listen to her story, the way you don't interrupt the silences between her thoughts. That's what makes her want to come closer. A man's shoulder doesn't have to be wide. It just needs to be steady enough for her to believe, if I lean on it, I won't be let go. At that moment, if you react too quickly, if you smile in a way that suggests something, or offer your shoulder like it's a joke, you might unintentionally ruin the feeling she just let herself touch. What she needs isn't a reaction. She needs your quiet steadiness, your calm that holds the space intact. Slow your breath. Say nothing. Don't dodge. Don't lean in, but don't pull away either. The way you sit there, firm, clear, unmuddied, is the answer. Sometimes the desire to lean on someone doesn't come from what they do, but from the stability they naturally radiate. The man who gives a woman peace isn't the one who knows how to comfort her best. He's the one who never makes her guess. No need to prove strength, no need to outshine anyone. Just be calm enough that she doesn't feel small, and understanding enough that she doesn't need to explain too much. Maybe after that, she won't say anything more. Everything will return to normal. But if one day you notice she sits a little closer, or her hand rests lightly on yours without reason, don't assume it's an accident, because some touches aren't meant to begin something, but to confirm you're still here, and you're still the one she can lean on when tired. And if one night she leans her head on your shoulder without asking, without saying anything, then don't do anything but sit still. Don't hold tighter, don't pull away, and don't wait for what's next. Because in that moment, what she's touching isn't your shoulder, but the feeling of being able to lean on someone without needing to hold herself together. If you can hold yourself steady in that moment, without rushing, without panicking, without overreaching, then maybe, starting tomorrow, she won't need to lean anymore. Not because she no longer needs support, but because she knows, if ever she does, you'll still be there. And when a woman is certain she can lean on someone anytime she grows weary, she no longer needs permission from her own feelings. The fourth phrase, I want a place where I can hear you more clearly. The sound of the world isn't always found in music or voices. Sometimes it's in the quiet collision of things that haven't yet been said. There are moments when the woman beside you won't ask for anything specific, but her eyes begin searching for a place to pull away. And then she softly says, I want a place where I can hear you more clearly. You might think it's because the spot you're in is too loud, but if you're attentive, you'll realize she's not just trying to hear your voice more clearly, she's hoping to feel you more closely, not with her ears, but through a presence close enough that nothing needs to be loud anymore. When a woman suggests leaving a crowded place, she's not avoiding the noise. She's testing whether you're someone she can walk with into quiet. She doesn't say she wants to be alone with you, but if you understand what just happened, you'll know this is the moment the surrounding space needs to shrink until it's just the two of you. When a woman wants to step out of the noisy world and chooses you as her silence, that's a confession with no words. That suggestion isn't meant for you to instantly nod, stand up, and ask where to. If you do, you'll break the delicate air she just left open. Instead, smile gently, and if you're truly ready, rise slowly, then look at her as if to say, I want that too. It doesn't need to lead to anywhere special, just somewhere quiet enough for even the smallest things to become clear. A chair tucked away from the lights, an empty balcony, a stretch of road no one else walks. When she says she wants a place to hear you better, what she's really doing is creating a space where the emotions between you won't be distorted by the world outside. You don't need to say much after that. Just be beside her, the way you sit, the way you listen, the way you look at her without needing to speak. That's when every word becomes unnecessary, and every ounce of attention lands exactly where language can't reach. Some couples begin with a smile, some connections begin with the touch of a hand, but some deeper emotions begin with a space quiet enough for two people to hear each other's breath. And if she's the one to open that space, it means she trusts you more than you realize. Intimacy doesn't begin with action. It begins with the silent agreement that we can set the world aside and keep just a small moment just for us. And in that moment, if you know how to not interrupt, not rush, not try too hard to impress, then that very ease is what will make her want to stay a little longer. She may not say much once you get there. She may just look at you and smile, and you shouldn't try to break that silence with questions like, what are you thinking? How do you feel? Because if she has left the old space just to hear you more clearly, then what she truly needs isn't words, but closeness. Let your presence become an unspoken affirmation. Let your gaze say, I'm here, close enough that you don't have to strain to hear me, and real enough that you don't need to guard yourself. And if she sits beside you in a long stretch of silence, so long that you feel like you should say something, don't. Just breathe slowly and hold a silence soft enough that she knows when the world gets too loud, she was right to choose you as her place to retreat. The fifth phrase, I don't know why, but today you're really captivating. Sometimes you have no idea what part of yourself is being seen by someone else. You didn't do anything special. You didn't try to be different. You were simply present at the right time, in the right place. And then, on a colorless afternoon, when she looks at you a little longer than usual, she gently says, I don't know why, but today you're really captivating. Outsiders might think it's a compliment about your appearance, but you know it's not about the shirt you're wearing or the hairstyle you changed. She's not saying you look good. She's touching something deeper, something you didn't show off and never needed to display. Attraction isn't something you strive to achieve. It's a state of being. It's the way you're present, calm, not interrupting, not seeking attention. It's the quiet energy you carry when you're not trying to influence anyone. And today, in some quiet, unexplained way, that light in you was close enough, clear enough to reach her without needing an introduction or a word. Really captivating is sometimes just her way of admitting, today, something about you made it hard for her to look anywhere else. Maybe it was the way you leaned in to pour a drink, or how you listened quietly to others, your eyes not fixed on her, but not drifting far either. Maybe it was when you did nothing at all, just sat there, steady, unbothered, and that very stillness somehow made her unable to look away. If, in that moment, you respond with lines like "I didn't do anything," or "really," or laugh awkwardly and dismiss it, you'll unintentionally dismiss the very thing she just allowed herself to feel, the thing she hadn't planned to say, but couldn't hold back. Don't brush it off. Don't grab onto it either. Just smile, gently, and let your eyes carry forward the feeling she just put into words. You don't need to say anything to hold that moment in place. True light doesn't need to reflect immediately. It only needs to remain undisturbed by awkward reactions. Just stay there, the way you've been all along. Let her feel that what moved her wasn't a single moment, but the steady, quiet presence you've been offering all this time. A grounded man doesn't try to be attractive. He simply lives in accordance with what he knows to be true. And that very consistency, the way you don't try to stand out, ends up drawing more attention than anyone else in the room. Because women aren't drawn to noise, they're drawn to what makes them stop without knowing why. From that day on, she might never repeat those words again, but the way she looks at you will change. There'll be a quiet acknowledgement, a subtle stillness, and a hint of curiosity to see if you noticed something had shifted, not because you've become more handsome, but because on that day her gaze toward you stopped being accidental. You don't need to hold on to that feeling. Don't turn it into something that must happen again. Its beauty lies in how you let it rest quietly with the moment, like a last ray of sun slipping through the window. No one turns on a light, no one takes a photo, yet it lingers in memory long after it's gone. How a Stoic man responds to subtle signals. Not every signal from a woman is clear. Sometimes you'll be caught off guard by a half-joking, half-serious remark, or a glance so brief yet so sharp, it halts your heartbeat. You feel confused. You don't know if what you just sensed was real, or just a flicker of courtesy, and it's in that very moment that your reaction reveals the kind of man you truly are. If you're not calm enough, you'll start guessing. If you lack depth, you'll react immediately. If you're impatient, you'll try to clarify her feelings, and that very act will shatter the fragile space she just allowed to exist. A Stoic man doesn't need the signal to be bright and obvious. You don't need her to spell things out. You just need to be still enough not to break what she herself might still be unsure of. Women don't look for someone who understands every part of them. They look for someone who is gentle enough not to make them explain too much. A subtle signal doesn't mean she's unclear. It means she's wondering, are you the kind of man who only sees the surface, or one deep enough to touch the unspoken layer of emotion? It might be a glance that lingers for just a few seconds longer, a seemingly casual line, a moment where she stands slightly closer than usual. If you're quiet enough, you'll feel it. If you're deep enough, you won't rush to respond. And if you're steady enough, you won't ruin the delicate texture that just opened. One of the biggest mistakes many men make is answering subtle signals with overly direct reactions. When she barely brushes your arm, you grab her hand like she's inviting you in. When she says, "I feel comfortable talking to you," you take it as a hint. And when you move too fast, you drop the emotion that was only just beginning to bloom inside her. The truth is, when she leaves something incomplete, she's not asking you to act. She's stepping back to see, will you move forward, step back, or remain still in your own calm presence? The way you respond in those unclear moments is a mirror reflecting the strength within you. Another common mistake, seemingly small but often made, is when you start trying to be more attractive After sensing even a small spark from her, you begin to talk more, laugh louder, show off more, but what you don't realize is, it was precisely the moment you weren't trying at all that made her notice you. The more you try to appear special, the more you lose your natural grace. Women aren't drawn to tricks. They're drawn to a sense of safety. She noticed you sometimes simply because you were sitting there, quiet, clear, unhurried, without pressure, not trying to reach for her, yet not avoiding her either. A Stoic man doesn't live to chase signs. You don't need to know for sure whether she likes you. You only need to stay grounded in every state. When there's no signal, you don't fidget. When there's a subtle one, you don't overreact. When emotion arrives, you don't retreat. When it fades, you don't cling. A strong heart isn't one that never feels pain. It's one that doesn't act just to avoid it. You don't chase emotions, but you don't hide from them either. You don't need words, but you still hear what's unsaid. You show up not to dominate the space, but to preserve its quiet beauty. She may pull back. She may change. She may just be testing what kind of man you are, but you don't need to read her. You only need to be present, clear, composed, as if you expect nothing, but are complete should it come. You don't need strategies. You don't need tricks. You just need to hold a presence deep enough not to be swept into expectation, and a gaze mature enough not to respond too soon when it's not yet time. Because in the end, women don't choose the man who guesses them right. They choose the man who doesn't make them feel misunderstood, even through a single look. And that man doesn't need to speak much, doesn't need to move fast. He only needs to be there at the right moment, at the right distance, close enough for her to want to come nearer, and steady enough that if she pulls away, he remains unmoved. Not all emotions need to be named, especially with women, where feelings are often hidden in the softest, quietest gestures. The words you've heard in this video were never meant to be confessions, nor declarations. They are subtle emotional ripples, small, delicate, but strong enough to stir something if someone is truly present, deep, and gentle enough to feel them. A man of substance doesn't need to decode a woman. He doesn't need explanations. He only needs to show up, truly, without rushing, without forcing, without assuming. And if you've ever heard one of those 5 lines, understand, it wasn't a compliment, it was an opening. Maybe it will return in another way, through another person. Maybe it will return in another way, through another person. But next time, don't rush to respond. Let your eyes, your silence, and the stillness of your presence be the quiet way you answer what she never put into words. If you've ever felt a signal like that, leave a message below. I choose to be fully present, without rushing. And remember this, don't wait for her to say it out loud. If you still find yourself asking, does she like me perhaps? You haven't gone deep enough to truly feel what's already there, because the most delicate things are never loud. And if you want to keep learning how to read emotion, not with your mind but with your depth, the next videos will offer much more for you to realize, and even more for you to remember.